you don't really have the kind of risks that we used to have, which is really kind of funny because back when there were a lot of risks, people took more risks than they do now, I think.
The circumstances that lead to that situation, while sometimes legitimate, can also be caused by other things.
This country used to be a country of rebels, and we are no longer that at all. We are like a bunch of couch potatoes.
Any hardship you come across, you're going to say, oh, it's because I'm black, obviously.
I had a point, but I kind of just lost it for a second. Because
one time my friend and I, we found this shack that was like full of guns, and we got all freaked out, and we were running, and there was this huge hill with a bunch of ivy on it.
Oh, wait. I just thought, nope, never mind. It's gone.
But when it comes to experiences, the best way to learn is by making mistakes.
Okay, welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt.
And I'm Casey Rochford. We're just being dorks.
Yeah.
So what do you got on the docket today?
Well, we actually have a viewer request today. The topic today is going to be, is America becoming too soft?
Well, that's just your cis white male privilege talking, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the short answer, yeah. It's definitely getting a little sensitive. I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. I would say, I mean, I think there are definitely changes, societal changes and things. And I think your interpretation of what makes somebody soft is subjective, of course. But I'll say there was a time in this country where it was a very hardworking, get your hands dirty, kind of like rebellious sort of nature here. And I don't know that culture really exists. Like the idea that you'd pull yourself up by your bootstraps and bring yourself out of, you come from another country, maybe with nothing, start a business and work really hard, and you could accomplish something and make a better life for yourself. I don't know that that's really that prevalent in the culture of the United States nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, there's a measure of evolution going on there in society where it's more accessible to make a living. It's more accessible to get an education. I mean, not necessarily economically, but there aren't as many societal barriers. Like, there aren't Negro only schools and stuff like that. Like there's a great amount of integration going on in this melting pot we have.
Yeah.
But when the melting pot starts melting, you run into this issue where people are starting to be like, well, I don't feel I'm getting a fair shake. I think things should be adjusted in my favor. And I think people are getting a little bit too needy in that sense.
Yeah, I'll agree with that completely. And maybe it could be this good life that we have, because really, if you look at it objectively, we've never had it better. However you feel about the problems of the world or whatever, we've never had a better life. We've never had the kind of standard of living that we have now. And I think that does change people. I think people become complacent, and they're not really, they don't feel any kind of drive to improve their situation. There's other things like life is fairly safe. People live longer, pretty much longer than they have in history. And, you don't really have the kind of risks that we used to have, which is really kind of funny because back when there were a lot of risks, people took more risks than they do now, I think. And, going off and pioneering and exploring uncharted territories and stuff, and creating a homestead in some kind of place that they've never been before, that isn't even on a map. Like, nobody does that nowadays. Well, not in any kind of large number. And we don't have any, we're not really at war with anybody too. And I think that's another factor. Like, things are pretty safe. And I do think it creates sort of this culture where it's just so easy to settle down and play video games and work your cushy job and just kind of cruise through life and never challenge yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, apart from the relaxed environments that a lot of people are afforded, I mean, obviously there's still a lot of people that don't have that, and there's this, there is a huge impediment that keeps a lot of people from being able to succeed. I think, like, I'm not saying that that's invalid by any stretch of the imagination. There are definitely, I mean, I've been in situations where, for instance, when I had cancer, I became disabled, I went on Social Security, I had Medicare in my 20s, right?
Yeah.
In order to get back on your feet, as it were, if you wanted to do this return to work program that they have, when you start making a little bit of money, they instantly slash your check by a disproportionate amount. So now, instead of not working and getting this much, you're working and getting this much. And they're basically incentivizing living off the teat of the government. And then you have people up here being like, you're just lazy, you're living off the teat of the government. And we're down here like, yeah, but it makes more sense, And
Yeah.
so that is definitely happening, and that's like a whole other problem in itself.
Well, you could certainly, I think the generational comparison is a factor that people of an older generation, shall we say, older than me, they
Are
had
they
the
even
world.
still alive anymore?
Yeah. The world was a different place. Just going ahead, forging ahead and getting a job and working your way up the career ladder. Like, it actually was possible in most fields. And I don't think it is now. There's a different tactic that you have to apply. But what you said is actually valid. There are things that have changed. And maybe I would argue that all of these safety nets might actually be the reason for all of this complacency, is that there is no real harm. You always fall soft no matter what. So there could be some implications there that it might have a negative effect, at least as far as people's incentives go. But I'll also say this: yes, there are still a lot of people living in impoverished conditions, but I would, at least in this country, I won't speak for other countries, but in the United States, I would rather be somebody living at or below the poverty level today than a king in, say, like the 1300s. There is no comparison for your standard of living, regardless of how much cash you have. We have it so good now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a relative comparison, but I think one of the issues, going to the topic of the viewer request, like, is America becoming soft? I think one of the issues that's really driving that is this excuse factory that seems to be coming from people trying to create this barrier, like a name for the barrier that's keeping them down.
Mm-hmm.
And it has many names and many faces, and these are called buzzwords.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and buzzwords really get on my nerves, because basically what it is somebody taking albeit a shitty situation, and then they're slapping a name on it, so that the circumstances that lead to that situation, while sometimes legitimate, can also be caused by other things.
Sure.
And that buzzword then gets blanket applied to all those things.
Yeah.
And so what you have here as an example is I'll take this as an example in relationships. Say somebody you're dating says, I think you're cheating on me, and you're like, you're crazy. Like, what makes you think that? Well, I saw a certain text. Oh, well, that's my cousin or whatever. There's a small chance that dude is actually trying to make you think you're crazy to get out of doing something shady. But there's also a bigger chance that you're reading into it a little too much.
Yeah, I think.
But when you create this word, this buzzword, gaslighting, all of a sudden that gets applied to anything. Well, he's denying it, so he's just gaslighting me. He's trying to make me feel crazy for calling him out on his bullshit, and maybe he didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I mean, things exist probabilistically, and I don't think that most people are taught to analyze things in that way. And yeah, that's a good point. Like the all these buzzwords and I guess boogeymen that are out there. So I'll say this, like, I really like that point, because that is sort of the excuse. And I think people see those things and they say, oh, well, this is the reason why things are this way. So they just give up. Like, oh, I can't do this because of, the pink tax or the glass ceiling or, the rich or the whatever, you name it, whatever the boogeyman is that's
Mm-hmm.
keeping you down, the man, basically, there's no excuse to even try. And we didn't used to have that. And that's, I think, what the viewer is getting at. We didn't care about all those things. People just did what they had to do to make their lives better. And they fought. And this country, like, that's another thing. This country used to be a country of rebels. And we are no longer that at all. We are like a bunch of couch potatoes. And I don't know if that's making us better. Yeah, maybe we're better gamers and coders or something like that, but I don't know that we're better innovators and builders. I mean, industry in this country is all but gone. And
well, if you're making excuses, you're backing out of competition.
yeah,
And the biggest buzzword, I think, has to be, in this context, privilege, blank privilege.
okay, yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah, white privilege, male privilege, cis privilege, whatever it is. People are saying that there's two cognitive biases going on here. I think there's you're creating this negative connotation based on an arbitrary descriptor. So
Yeah.
you and I are white. We're largely Scandinavian, right? Because we're white, by this definition, this buzzword definition, we are automatically bestowed this privilege over other people.
Well,
So,
yeah,
okay, this may be true in some cases. I'm not denying that at all. And but the problem is it's not the case in all situations.
Yeah.
And it's being treated as such. So what you have here is a blanket statement, and I think everyone kind of understands that you really can't paint with broad strokes.
No, it's in it, and it's a superficial thing. It's like, what? Because I have a different level of melanin than somebody else, or my heritage comes from a different country, suddenly you're going to say that my life experience is the same as everybody else who shares that same characteristic? That's dumb. That's like saying everybody who's a redhead has had the same life experience. How does that make any sense? It makes no sense.
Exactly. It's completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
I mean, case in point, I recently got a new job and I negotiated a higher wage than they were willing to pay. Is that because I'm white? Well, explain to me then why half the company is Asian.
Yeah.
And
let's not forget about Asian privilege, by the way, because actually Asians financially do a lot better than us white folk.
Yeah, and even further, this is a rather frugal company compared to the companies I've come from.
Yeah.
So like the fact that I negotiated is being erased by this white privilege. A lot of this is seen with male privilege. There's this idea that there's wage disparity. Yeah, statistically speaking, that might be correct, but that doesn't mean the cause. Correlation is not equal causation. That is one of the prime things that people need to remember.
Yeah.
There are studies that have shown that men are more likely and more aggressive in negotiation of wage. And when you negotiate your wage at the front, your percent increases every year obviously result in you making more money over time.
Sure, it has nothing to do with your skin color or gender or anything. It's just what you choose to do.
Right. And even if there's one or two guys that are preferentially choosing men or white people or whatever, that's not always the case. You can't make blanket statements to excuse the fact that you're not doing as well as other people.
Well, okay, yeah, I know. I'll talk to that because the wage gap thing is kind of a myth, and it's based on a fallacious analysis of income to work and stuff. And if you account for all of the variables, actually men and women kind of make the same wage. Hour per hour.
I think.
Yeah, it's based on however many hours worked and things like that. There's some other factors, but it's ignored all the time.
Yeah.
The thing is and oh man, I had a point, but I kind of just lost it for a second because I started looking at too many things. I think let's go back to the original thought about are we as a country becoming too soft, and maybe I'll remember what I was going to say in a second. I really do think we are, and oh wait, I just thought, nope, never mind, it's gone.
We need to gump in a little light bulb above your head that just cracks.
Yeah. So what do you think sort of has been the cause of all this?
It's really hard to, like, I just got done saying you can't really paint with broad strokes, so I don't know if I can point to any one thing that's applied to everybody. There's certainly like this broad spider web of things that have led us down this path to just making excuses left and right for why we're not doing so well. And I can't emphasize enough that, yes, there are definitely a lot of things in our way, like inflation's out of control.
Yeah.
Housing, I want to do an episode on why the hell do houses even increase in value? Like, entropy means that things get shittier with time. So,
no, they don't increase in value; they increase in price. But we'll have to talk about economics another day.
Yeah.
Wait, I just thought.
But that's a problem,
Yeah. And it does.
Wages don't increase with the amount of inflation. Like, that's definitely a problem.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing. A thing that popped in my head earlier that I lost and remembered and forgot again. The idea, the whole, like, what you were talking about this like the wage gap idea and the difference between pay between different cultures, like people with different skin colors and stuff like that. What does it matter if one person makes more than another? It's this whole zero-sum game kind of thing. Like, people think that money is that way, that like, because someone's making a lot more money, that you're making less or something, which is not true. If you're making a sufficient pay for what you're doing, I think that's valid. And while there's definitely racism in this country still, it's drastically reduced from where it was back in the past. Drastically.
Yeah.
But it still exists. But then the thing is, like, we'll have to talk about racism too, because I think there's more isms in that regard. Like, people don't judge people simply based on the color of their skin. There's all kinds of judgments that people make. It's all over the place. I don't think that is the reason why pay is lower or higher for different groups. I think it goes broader than that. But yeah, we should. I mean, this is kind of led us in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like, I think a lot of these things probably deserve their own discussion independently. So this is actually a really good sort of seed episode to start lots of conversations.
Yeah. No, what I think you're talking about is a confirmation bias, right? So basically you're saying, if you're this person making excuses or whatever, you're saying it's got to be because I'm black. And then any hardship you come across, you're going to say, oh, it's because I'm black, obviously.
Or because I'm poor. Or because whatever. I didn't go to college.
Or because I have one leg, or because I'm trans, or whatever. Like, yeah, that might be the case, but it also really, really might not be the case.
No, and it's no excuse. The thing is, in this country, you can do anything. Yes, there are a lot of roadblocks, but our heritage is all about overcoming those roadblocks. I mean, hell, look at the crazy stuff we've accomplished in the past. Going to the moon, like the Panama Canal, like building the Intercontinental Railroad and all this stuff. I mean, skyscrapers and stuff. We built all this stuff. We've accomplished so much with so little. And I mean, the Panama Canal was dug. We had barely developed steam-powered tools, and we built that whole entire thing. Now we have all kinds of technology, and we're just resting on our laurels, and we're just like, we don't need to do anything else.
Well, the internet is probably the only thing we can conclusively do as a world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like going back to the second cognitive bias going on with these buzzwords is this false dichotomy that you're creating. You're saying that it's got to be because I'm X arbitrary factor. It's because that guy was white, or it's because that guy was a man that he got that job. What you're kind of doing is ironically, in a way, basically taking an arbitrary thing like skin color and saying, oh, they got that really cool thing because of their skin color, when we just 50 years ago like had this huge civil movement against taking things away from people based on skin color.
Yeah.
So it was like this either or thing. It's like, well, you're either white or you're black, and you can have this or you can have that, and we did away with that. And now we're kind of saying like, oh, because I don't have this, it must be because of the skin color.
Yeah.
So we've kind of like flipped the tables, and I mean, it's not just skin color; it's all kinds of things that are diametrically opposed.
Yeah, it's a lot of things,
or gradients or whatever. Like gender and stuff like that are obviously different from sex, but have like ties to sex, and it confuses people, and the confusion offends people. Like it's okay to be confused about something. It doesn't mean that you hate it.
No, and I mean, the thing is, things change in time. I think.
Like, I will openly admit that I don't understand what it means to be trans, or what it means to feel like you're a gender opposite than your sex. Well, I don't understand it, but I completely am okay with it.
Yeah, same here. And actually, that's a good thing. We should probably like invite somebody to discuss that, because I think that's something that
I mean, you don't have to understand something to accept it.
Yeah,
that's what faith is, right? I mean, like that's what religion's built on.
Sure, exactly. And yeah, wow, that's a
that's a huge
thing.
topic.
I mean, that's huge. But getting back to the how we've changed as a country, like I feel like I think my friend is right in this, that we've kind of lost our pioneering spirit, our do or die, like try something new and dangerous, and like this whole like helicopter parenting thing. Like it's all like, oh, you got to be safe and careful, and don't nobody should get hurt, don't fight in the school grounds. I remember when I was going to school and people fought, like fists and blood and stuff like that, and we were just like, that's how it is. And now it's like this huge thing. You're gonna I think
I think bullying is a lot of bullshit.
No, not bullying. Yeah. I totally agree. That's a different topic. But I'm talking about, like, if you have a disagreement and you duke it out, because I made a really good friend by beating the crap out of him. Like he was making fun of another friend of mine. So but he became my friend after that. So it's like, is fighting a bad thing? No, not necessarily.
Yeah, and no, my dad's told me similar stories from when he was growing up. He used to go to fists with my grandpa, and then they would go have a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you just gotta blow off steam.
Sure.
And then you can laugh about it.
Yeah, and I think our perception has changed of those things. When I was a kid, I remember me and my friend built a raft and like went off through some swamp to an island and explored it in this vacant lot area behind his house. It was like adventure. You would go off. My parents would just let us run around in the woods and stuff like that. And that's unheard of now. In fact, nowadays, parents, this is actually very common. parents go to jail or are heavily fined for just like leaving their kid in the car for a minute, or like letting their 10-year-old, hang out at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's actually true. Like, we are getting soft. We're getting stupid in that regard.
Yeah.
And I don't,
it's like you, like I used to roam around in the Gulch, Puget Park area.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
one time my friend and I, we found this shack that was like full of guns, and we got all freaked out, and we were running, and there was this huge hill with a bunch of ivy on it, and we started slipping down it, and there was a cliff at the end, and I grabbed onto the ivy, and we had a rope because we were playing Indiana Jones or whatever. My buddy was about to fall off the cliff, and I threw the rope to him. We're like 9 years old, right? And I'm here hanging on by ivy, throwing a rope to my friend. Like, who does that anymore? Like, it's not the 1980s anymore.
No. If you were doing that today, your parents might go to jail for endangering you. And I think that in itself. I mean, we should probably talk about the upbringing, because maybe that might be contributing to this. The idea that like everything should be so safe and you should never let your kids roam free. I think it's made a generation or two of kids that have never experienced the kinds of things you and I have. Yeah. And those things made us better people, stronger people as a result. And
as a kid, I touched the fireplace and I got burned.
Yeah.
And I didn't touch it anymore.
Yeah.
But nowadays that would be like, oh, call CPS.
Yeah. I built circuits and stuff, and I electrocuted myself many times. Actually, I remember as a little kid, I was doing some soldering, building a circuit, and I had a soldering iron on the front porch, and I reached down without looking and picked it up by the hot end, and it like melted my skin and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, okay, well, that sucks, and moved on. But
yeah, it's like people today are trying to make omelets by beaming the yolk out of the shell and not breaking it.
Well, okay, so this is kind of what I think. The idea is, if you provide a perfect, safe environment for kids, that they're going to grow up safe and perfect. But I think the opposite happens. I think it's those challenges and those dangers and risk taking that teach us lessons that make us better people as we get older. All of those times you broke your arm, or like fell off of something, or like almost drowned or whatever, those are positive experiences in the long run. They're learning experiences. And if you don't have those, you're going to be a totally different person. And I don't think it's for the better. I guess it depends on what you want in a society. Do you want people that are strong and capable, or do you want people that are subservient and lethargic?
Yeah. And really quick, to tie it to another episode we've done on vaccinations. I know that there's a lot of baby boomers that think, oh, we had measles as a kid and we're okay, so we're just tougher for it. The rules of biology don't necessarily apply to the rules of society.
Yeah.
I just need to throw that out there. Like, if we have a way of preventing death on the cellular level, we should do it. But when it comes to experiences, the best way to learn is by making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're probably running a little bit long, but I'll just add this last point. I think that kind of there's this movement. I don't know if it's in response to this whole like hyper safety culture, and very I guess the whole like CPS, call CPS for every little thing and sue over everything. There's a movement for to create these playgrounds for kids that are kind of dangerous, like dangerous in a controlled way. So there's like hammers and saws and stuff that they can build and crawl around on, and there's like no rubber mats to land on. It's like, they go explore and they make things and they do stuff, and it's really cool. Like, if that takes off, I'm sure there will be legal, somebody's going to have a problem with it and try to fight it. But I think it's a good thing. Like, let kids live a little bit dangerously. Let the tether out a little bit and let them explore, because that's what makes us better.
Yeah, I mean, to give an example on an adult level, I'll even admit to a little weakness here. I took ninjutsu lessons, and part of the training in ninjutsu is how to fall, right?
Yeah.
And we were learning this on pads, and the sensei was like, when the weather's better, I think we should go outside on the asphalt and do these break falls. Huh. And I was kind of like, I don't want to fall on the concrete.
Yeah.
And maybe we should. I mean, in a real fight situation, you're probably going to fall on the concrete.
Yeah, you're not going to have practice knives, and you're not going to have like padded gloves and things like that. No, it's going to be the real deal.
Yeah.
And the thing is, life doesn't have those kinds of protections inherently. So the way to prepare for life is to experience them on like the dangers and the failures on a small scale with a mentorship of your parents, so that when you get out into the real world, you can actually handle yourself.
Or your sensei.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to plug your
actually, like the Bujin Con, Bujikan, they're all over the world, and it's a great school. Like the art of ninjutsu is awesome.
Oh, it is. Yes.
Look it up. It is it's amazing. It's more than a fighting style. It's
a way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how to be sneaky. It's how to be cunning. Like it's awesome. I love it.
So what you're saying is the way to reinstill this hardy pioneer sense in this country is for us to all become ninjas.
Yeah, I think we need to be ninjas.
That would be freaking awesome. I'm totally on board. You get my vote.
I am, after all, a biologist ninja. So how cool is that?
A biologist ninja. Yeah. Well, that I mean, if you study the history of ninjutsu, that wouldn't be unheard of.
That's right. Masters of disguise.
Yeah. And don't forget, real ninjas use lasers.
Sweet ones.
Yeah. This has been a pretty fun episode, I think. Like, kind of just a little bit all over the place, but I really enjoyed the discussion. Like, it's kind of cool to have somebody throw out an idea and for us to discuss something we didn't think of.
Yeah, throw us your ideas. If you've got something that you think is, something that people don't normally want to talk about. That's what kitchen sink microscopy is all about.
Yeah.
We love that shit.
Yeah. Nothing about like makeup or cats or anything like that. Like that, everybody, that's nothing. We controversial topics or unusual topics, like, yeah, we like to talk about it all, and we'll probably find a way to make it into a half-hour long entertaining discussion.
We just like to think, and we want you to think as well.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. So feel free to comment, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Keep the conversation going in the comments. If you have other ideas, recommendations, leave them there. We might actually do an episode about that.
Yeah. Thanks for deep sink diving with us. Enjoy the music on the way out.
Have a good day.
Take another swing, I can take a hit. Facing the wind, I dare to spit. Take a number and get in line. What's right is right.
go ahead. Oh,
Right,
wait, it's
so-
me. Oh, yeah. Good. Go ahead, myself. Okay, wait a minute.
After you. After you.
No, after you.
After you. I insist.